Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the Soul Liberation Company today. My name is Phil, and I am so glad that you're here. This is part 2 of an interview with Pastor Mark from Antioch Christian Church in eastern Iowa. He's someone I would label an expert in discipleship and mentorship. Over 200 people were baptized in Jesus' name last year, and even more were personally discipled and mentored. They were growing in their faith and how to live that out in their community. This church is making such an impact in their local community, it caught my attention. The Spirit is moving, and even the Iowa governor personally commended Antioch Christian Church after hearing about how their work in the community helped with a devastating storm that ripped through the region. Antioch really does seek to be the hands and feet of Jesus locally. In part 2, we're going to discuss, does God really care about hurts of people, or is he just, watching all of this? And also that the fact your life doesn't have to be a hot mess express. God has a path, a purpose, and a direction for you. So stay tuned and join us as we walk this path together as disciples of the one that sets us free. And if you haven't seen part 1, check it out at the end of the video. I'll have a link. Let's go. Thank you very much, Mark, for your insights on discipleship. That was amazing. And I'm definitely going to have to be reflecting on that as we keep talking about what it means to be a disciple. Thank you very much. So basically in this journey, when we're going through things, does God just sit back and watch, or does he actually truly care of what I'm going through? I've shared in the past, I've gone through a divorce I didn't want. I was really sick growing up with some migraine headaches. I've got lots of kids. 5 and 1 on the way. Can you believe it? And my kids aren't perfect. Well, I claim to be, but at the same time, man, they've done some things that people in the church have been like, and then they really judge, and it hurts. And especially when it's against my own kids and stuff like that. And so I kind of pull back and don't want to really do much at church anymore. And to be honest, it makes me question, like, where's God's power? Is he just watching all this? I guess that's kind of my lead into why I'm asking, if that makes sense. So yeah. I think there's a lot of people out there like that.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking the question. And it's a multifaceted difficulty. I mean, when we think about, God's involved, we're involved, people are involved, everybody's making decisions. Some of them are not great. And at some point, we find ourselves with some amount of brokenness, and then we're trying to figure out who's to blame for this? What's the problem? And there are times when it's my fault, very explicitly. There are times when it's another person's fault. God has given us an amount of choice over our lives. That's explicit throughout the Bible. And there are times when I try to navigate my expectations. What do I expect of God here? What do I imagine him to be doing in the church? He doesn't always tell us what he's going to do or when. We know what he is like, and we see him displayed through Jesus. And the Holy Spirit, that part of God, has some very specific gifts and interactions with us. But much like a parent not telling a kid why something's happening or when it's going to happen or explaining every detail to them. Sometimes it's a matter of, I care about you. You are in my protection and my love, and you need to trust me. This is the direction we're going. And the kid sometimes is bewildered. This hurts. This isn't fun. I don't like this. Why did you cook that for me? There's a lot of things.
They're always like that.
Oh. Yeah, there's a pickiness that we as children can have. And we look up and we think somebody's got to have this under control. There's got to be a plan somewhere. And when it doesn't adhere to our timeline or our expectations, naturally we reach out and try to figure out who's responsible for this. This is not according to my plan. And at some point, some people will actually reduce their view of God down to something that they can manage and control. And then they get disappointed. But the Christian is asked to trust. And sometimes that means very explicit instructions in the Bible. God says, do this. And we just got to say it doesn't match what I prefer, but I've got to do it. Other times he says trust, and he doesn't tell us what to do. And so he actually has us make a choice, and that can be very uncomfortable. And so when we don't manage our expectations, and then somebody hurts us in the church, we're not careful. We can say, well, God, you promised, you're in control. Why didn't you do this or not do that? Well, we've got to be very careful not to hold God to a standard he didn't set for himself. It's real easy to have my dad was supposed to do this for me. Is that what he promised? Our expectations of God really need to be managed. And so I know that's a bit of an ambiguous answer to a very important question.
Well, I think I hear what you're saying is that we put on expectations of what should happen to God versus waiting for God to act and expect him to act, but in a way that is according to him and his time and his nature, and not just immediately how we see fit.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, and you think in terms of how we've been coached, sometimes by uncomfortable people about God. They'll say, well, just have faith. Sometimes that's a cop-out for, I'm uncomfortable with this situation, don't know what to do next. So I'm just gonna say, well, you probably should just stop worrying so much and take it up with God. And then they step back and hope it gets resolved.
Yeah.
And so we can onboard some really improper expectations of God. There's some people that they'll say, well, God is in control. Well, there's a version of that that's true. There's a version of that that's incredibly false. God is over everything.
Yeah.
But does he make every choice? He doesn't say that. He gives people the opportunity. Some people make good choices some of the time and bad choices other times. So we hurt ourselves, we hurt each other, we are hurt by people. And for God to allow for a situation where there can be a choice in the matter, and I believe God's power includes his willingness to let us make some choices.
I had spoken a little while back. I was kind of basing it from Deuteronomy 30. And basically it was God lining up the people of Israel in two lines and saying, okay, step across this line if you want to choose life and follow me, or choose across this line and follow yourself and choose death and destruction. And the God of the universe, the creator, the God that is sovereign and could do whatever he wants, is giving people out of that choice.
Yeah, it's very true. And the third component to that, which people in our day tend to miss, is faith. It's one thing to do right or to do wrong. It's another thing to trust God in the middle of it when you're doing what's right, but you know he's bigger than your choices. Paul was very clear that following rules cannot change a heart. And he would say that you have to trust God no matter what time period you lived in history, no matter what God asks you to do, whether it's in Deuteronomy with the law, whether it's in the New Testament with the church and surrendering to the Holy Spirit, no matter where it was at in there, faith, trust in God, letting him call the shots when we don't know what's next. That is the pervasive element of being right with God. That was how Abraham was right with God, his faith. That's how Paul was right with God, through his faith. And so rule keeping tends to cause us to go to one side of the line or the other. But if we've forgotten faith, it doesn't really matter what side of the line we're on.
So I guess to conclude is what I hear you saying on this is we don't go to church just for other people per se, or even for us. We go to church because we have faith in God. And we need to be looking to him through our problems and our hurts and not be worried about what other people are thinking and doing along the way to us, and just keep our focus on him. And that seems real.
Yeah, you've got to manage your expectations, not only with your relationship with God, but then also with everything that he's offered. A lot of times we have a funny expectation that God's going to just provide for all needs. Like if I trust him, he's going to take care of everything. Well, you might be the answer to that prayer. If there is hunger, God's not going to just magically make hunger go away. He's going to provide a pathway to get food. He's crafted a world, he's crafted wisdom. And so our expectation of God, one of my biggest temptations was to try to be wise and to isolate from other people. I spent many years where I thought, man, if I can just figure out what's right, and if I can just line up the right information, then I'm safe. And then I just basically sort of neglected to connect with other people. I kind of pushed them out of my life. I was scared. I was looking for security. I was looking for love. And I felt like if I could be wise, I could sort of sit on a mountain by myself and be safe. And found out I became really lonely. And then I started to realize that there was some real life that I was not experiencing. And so I asked God for it. Will you please give this to me? And he said, didn't speak audibly, but he taught me through many things. So basically that the things I needed were in community with other people. That I had to actually go, if I wanted to not be lonely, God wasn't going to make loneliness go away. He was going to provide a friend. But I had to go talk to that person. I had to go build a relationship. And that was so uncomfortable for me. And it's funny now that I actually help other people develop relationships. I think sometimes out of the poverty of the hole that we dug for ourselves, sometimes out of that poverty, God shows himself more deeply. And then we get a real heart for that. And then he uses us to help other people find that too.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in here at Soul Liberation. If there's anything that you enjoyed here, please like, subscribe, share this with your friends. Put something in the comments below about what you would like to hear next time.
Love you, bro.
Love you too, man. Peace out, guys.